Black boy despised. White bank manager regrets learning. The boy mother is a powerful executive. This story follows 13-year-old Amari Jackson, who enters a bank to open his first account and leaves in handcuffs accused of theft. His mother, Dr. Camille Hart, a hidden banking titan, arrives, exposes the prejudice, and sparks industry-wide reforms, transforming humiliation into a powerful lesson on privilege, responsibility, and justice. Amari Jackson stepped off the crosstown bus, gripping a green envelope that held every cent of the $950 his grandmother had pressed into his palm on his birthday. He was alone by choice. Proving responsibility meant walking through the revolving door of Riverview Bank without anyone smoothing the way. His Riversend Middle School uniform, polo slacks, scuffed sneakers fit well enough, but the confidence on his face fit better. Inside the marble floor gleamed echoing hurried shoes and clipped conversations. Amari rehearsed what he would say. "Good afternoon. I'd like to open my first checking account. I have my birth certificate and school ID." Simple. He queued up behind a pair of office workers, steadying his breathing, the way his debate coach had taught him. When his turn came, he stepped forward and met the gaze of teller Megan Walker. Megan's polite mask slid off the instant she saw the bulky envelope and the boy's brown skin. Her smile flattened. "Can I help you?" The words carried the thinnest sheen of courtesy, like plastic over stale bread. "Yes, ma'am. I'm here to open a checking account. This is my identification, and here's the initial deposit." He laid the documents on the counter with practiced care. Megan tapped a manicured nail on the glass. "That's a lot of cash for a kid. Where'd you get it?" "It's birthday money." Amari kept his voice neutral, remembering the de-escalation tips from health class. Her eyebrows arched. "Birthday money." She repeated it, as though tasting something sour. "Wait here." She gathered the papers but left the envelope untouched, as if it might stain her. Turning, she strode to an alcove behind the teller line. Amari exhaled slowly. This wasn't in any of the tutorials he had watched. Around him, customers flowed past, barely noticing the 13-year-old shifting on his feet. A television above the loan desk played muted market reports. Time stretched. Megan returned with a taller woman in a white blazer and decisive heels, branch manager Linda Price. Linda's eyes swept Amari head to toe, pausing on the scuffed sneakers, then on the envelope, before finally landing on his face. The judgment there felt clinical, as if she were confirming a diagnosis. "I'm Linda, the manager," she said, crisp and loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. "My teller informs me you want to deposit nearly $1,000 in cash." "Yes, ma'am." "I brought my documents." Amari pushed them forward again. Linda flipped through without reading, lips tightening. "I've seen situations like this before. Cash like yours often turns out to be problematic." She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung between them. "It's just birthday money." Amari repeated the phrase, beginning to taste desperate. Linda placed the documents back on the counter, untouched by her fingerprints. "Do your parents know you're here?" "My mom does. She signed my permission slip to leave school early." He patted his backpack for the folded form, but Linda raised a hand. "That won't be necessary right now." The icy politeness dropped a few degrees. "We have protocols for suspicious deposits, and I intend to follow them." Megan hovered beside her manager, a faint smirk forming. Two other tellers pretended to work while glancing over. A security guard at the door shifted his weight, sensing tension. Amari felt warmth creep up his neck. This was supposed to be routine open account deposit money. Get a debit card tomorrow. Yet every sentence he spoke seemed to tighten an invisible noose. He opened his mouth to explain again, but Linda spoke first, her tone final. "Stay right here. And do not use your phone." She pivoted toward her office heels, snapping on marble like a metronome, counting down to something Amari couldn't yet name. Behind the counter, Megan whispered to a colleague. The colleague's eyes widened, then darted toward Amari with mingled curiosity and fear. Amari's fingers clenched the envelope. In debate, tournaments, Silence meant yielding the floor. Here, silence felt like surrendering his story to strangers who had already written their own ending. He swallowed, straightened his shoulders, and waited as Linda disappeared behind frosted glass, unaware that with every tick of the wall clock, the ground beneath this bank was beginning to shift. Minutes slipped by, measured only by the quiet throb in Amari's temples and the clock's deliberate clicks. Behind the frosted glass silhouettes shifted Linda's angular outline, a shorter figure he assumed was Megan, then another shape he couldn't place. The hush of the lobby thickened. A couple waiting for a mortgage appointment exchanged uneasy glances. The security guard crossed his arms, pretending to watch the doorway, yet clearly eavesdropping on whatever brewed in that office. The door swung open. Linda strode back, Megan trailing her. She carried neither folder nor smile. Instead of stopping at the counter, Linda walked past the velvet rope and motioned for Amari to step aside into a small consultation alcove. He obeyed, envelope still clutched throat, suddenly dry. "I need you to tell me again where this money came from," she said, planting herself between Amari and the lobby, as if blocking an exit. "It's from my grandmother, ma'am. Birthday gift." He offered the same simple truth, softer this time. Linda folded her arms. "My cousin lost every dime she'd saved because a boy about your age said exactly that, claimed it was birthday money to launder cash for his uncles. Broke her heart and her retirement fund. I promised myself I'd never be the fool in that story." She leaned closer, voice lowering but sharpening. "Last year, I stared down the barrel of a 9mm courtesy of another sweet kid, walking in with a fat envelope. Since then, I've learned a rule: the darker the skin, the bigger the lie. I will not apologize for protecting this institution." Each sentence, delivered like a courtroom verdict, struck Amari harder than the one before. He had no language for the heat in his face: rage, shame, disbelief collapsing into something wordless. Still, he managed. "If you'll just verify my ID, I am verifying." Linda cut him off, producing a thin metal clipboard. She scribbled a few lines, then flipped open her phone. "Officer Barnes, Linda Price at Riverview Main Branch. I have a juvenile with approximately $1,000 in suspected illicit cash." "Yes. Yes, that neighborhood. He's withholding parent contact information," and grew hostile when questioned. She paused, shot Amari a withering look, and added loudly, "We may need him escorted." The guard's radio crackled faintly, confirmation the call was real. Customers shifted further away, forming an invisible moat. Amari's hands began to tremble. He forced them, still watching Linda snap her phone shut with satisfied finality. "You heard that," she said, voice oddly calm now that events were rolling downhill. "Officers will arrive shortly. Until then, you'll wait here. And the envelope stays on the table." He set it down, fingers reluctant to release the only proof of honesty he possessed. "Please, I need to call my mom. She can come right away." Linda extended her palm. "Phone." Amari hesitated, then produced it. Before surrendering the device, he tried one last appeal. "My mother's name is Dr. Camille Hart. She banks here too." "That's quite a fantasy," Linda replied, almost amused. "Dr. Whoever can clarify matters at the station." She pocketed the phone and retreated to the teller line. Megan whispered something that made Linda smirk. Their shared confidence radiated problem-contained, policy upheld. For Amari, everything narrowed to the alcove's pale walls, and the envelope lying on the tiny table like contraband. Shame fused with fear, fear that he might cry, and that tears would serve as further evidence against him. He locked his knees, schooling his face into the same calm expression he used when referees issued unfair fouls during basketball practice. 5 minutes crawled past, then 10. Distant sirens rose and faded, impossible to tell if they were coming for him. Each time the lobby door opened, adrenaline jolted his chest. A toddler's squeal in the lone line sounded strange, almost cruel in its normality. Linda reappeared this time, holding a laminated policy binder. She recited aloud for whoever cared to listen. Section 4.2 authorizes managerial staff to detain suspicious individuals under reasonable cause until law enforcement arrives. Her eyes locked on Amari, while she spoke, daring him to contest words he'd never read. He didn't flinch. Instead, an idea sparked quiet but electric. If the police took him, they would inventory his belongings. They would unlock his phone, and the moment they powered it on, unread notifications would flood the screen. His mother's emergency contact bypassed silent mode. Her name would flash in red. The thought offered a thin shard of hope. Still, hope felt fragile next to the polished certainty in Linda's stance. He realized she'd already decided what story the officers would hear, and truth rarely survived its first collision with prejudice. In that moment, Amari understood something he'd only read about in history class. Innocence alone could be invisible. Through the plate glass windows, he spotted twin blue lights reflecting off nearby storefronts, cruisers easing up to the curb. The guard straightened radio to his lips. Customers parted like water. Somewhere deep inside, Amari let out one slow breath, as though preparing for a plunge into icy river water. The lobby doors opened, and footsteps heavy with authority crossed the threshold. Part of him still believed clarity would prevail. Another part had already begun counting down to impact. Officer Peters stepped through the doors, first partner Ruiz, half astride behind palms, resting on their duty belts. They scanned the lobby, the way surgeons study X-rays, looking not for people, but for danger. Linda Price intercepted them 2 steps in voice, already primed with certainty. "Gentlemen, that's the juvenile." She pointed toward the alcove where Amari stood rigid beside the low table envelope in plain sight. Approximately $950 in unverified cash, refused to explain its origin, became evasive when asked to contact a guardian. Peters's gaze flicked over the scene lingering on the green envelope, like it was a biological hazard. "Got it. Any threats, manager?" "None so far," but he withheld his phone when requested. The omission twisted into insubordination by the way she said it. Ruiz angled toward Amari. "Let's see some ID, son." His tone implied a foregone conclusion. Showing papers would change nothing but paperwork. Amari offered both school ID and birth certificate with steady hands. "Everything's there, sir." "My mother can confirm," Peters interrupted. "What's your date of birth?" "August 12th, 2012. "And the cash birthday gift from my grandmother." Peters's eyebrows lifted at Ruiz in silent commentary. He handed the documents back without examining the hologram or seal. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're being detained on suspicion of possessing stolen property. We'll sort it out downtown." Amari felt the room tilt. "I haven't done anything. Please call my mom, Dr. Camille Hart." Linda's laugh cut across his plea. "Dr. Camille Hart? Right. Next, he'll say his dad's the mayor." Ruiz unclipped cuffs. "Turn around, hands behind your back." Time dilated. The marble floor cooled through Amari's sneakers, while every eye in the lobby fixed on him, curiosity, pity, avoidance. He raised his wrists, metal clamped shut a crack louder than the clock's ticks. As they guided him toward the exit, Peters recited rights by rote. Halfway across the lobby, Amari heard his phone buzz in Linda's pocket, an urgent vibration he recognized even muffled his mother's custom ringtone. The manager ignored it. Amari's pulse spiked. One chance remained. "Officer, my phone has proof," he tried voice wobbling. "It's got texts confirming the money." Ruiz shook his head. "Chain of custody, kid. We'll access it at the station." They paused at the security desk to tag the evidence envelope. When Peters turned to sign a form, Amari saw Linda set his phone beside the cash, still unlocked from earlier. Reflex beat fear. With cuffed hands, he twisted enough to thumb the screen-opened messages and stabbed out 3 words to the top emergency contact. "Help me. Bank." He hit send an instant before Ruiz noticed the motion and snatched the phone. "Quit fidgeting." The text vanished into the ether destination 3.7 miles away on the 31st floor of Hartstone Tower. Outside, humid air slapped Amari's face. Cameras from passing pedestrians already glinted. One teenager muttered, "Man, that's messed up," yet kept filming instead of intervening. The patrol car door opened. Peters lowered Amari's head and guided him into plastic back seat, molded more for compliance than comfort. As the cruiser pulled from the curb, Ruiz radioed Dispatch 1, juvenile en route Riverview Main Branch, suspected 459B. His tone stayed flat professional, as if reading weather. Inside the bank, Linda exhaled shoulders, dropping in triumph. Policy followed, she told Megan. But the phone on the evidence table buzzed again, this time screen lighting with a single name and crimson banner. Mom, emergency. Linda's smirk faltered. She silenced the call, unaware it was only the first tremor of a coming quake. Across town, Dr. Camille Hart paused mid-presentation as her device chimed twice, one unread text, 3 missed calls from an unfamiliar number that still carried her son's location tag. Her CFO saw her expression shift from curiosity to steel. "Gentlemen," Camille said, voice, barely above a whisper, yet commanding instant silence. "We'll reconvene later. Something urgent requires my attention." She closed the laptop already dialing. In the glass reflection, she caught her own eyes, calm, calculating, but beneath them, an ember flared. The last time she'd worn that look was during a hostile takeover. This, she sensed, would demand harsher leverage. Back in the cruiser, Amari pressed his forehead against plexiglass, trying to slow his heartbeat. He didn't know if the message had reached anyone, only that it was all he had left. Squad car tires rolled through stoplights, and with every block, the gap between him and safety widened, until at an intersection near Midtown, a black Bentley cut across traffic and fell in behind them, its license plate a code he'd seen his entire life. For the first time since the cuffs clicked, Amari tasted hope. He closed his eyes and whispered the only assurance he could muster, "Mom's coming." The glossy black Bentley ghosted the squad car through Midtown traffic, its low growl engine matching every turn, the cruiser's lights carved across evening haze. Inside, Dr. Camille Hart sat forward on the leather edge, as though leaning closer might shorten the distance to her son. "Keep them in sight, but don't spook them," she told her driver Quentin, while thumbing open a secure conference line. "Victor," she said when her security chief answered, "I need Patrol Unit 27B's location, stream to my screen, and a copy of Riverview's interior footage for the last 40 minutes. Scrub audio, if you have to, visuals first." A soft chime confirmed the feed. A thumbnail in the corner of her phone showed Linda Price smirking beside an empty teller cage. Camille's jaw set. "Isaac," she added, patching in her general counsel prep, "an emergency writ for unlawful juvenile detention. And find me Commissioner Torres." Even through the handset, Camille could hear Isaac's folder snap open. On it, "Chair Caldwell's already texted. He's mortified." "Good," she said. "Tell him mortified is a start." The cruiser turned onto Briarwood Street brakes, sighing as it rolled into the precinct lot. Quentin eased the Bentley to the curb. Camille exited before the tires kissed Park Crisp's suit, catching the sodium lights. 2 uniformed officers at the entrance stiffened. They recognized her the way pilots recognize storm fronts, inevitable, unstoppable. "Ma'am, this area is for authorized personnel," one began. "Which is why I'm here." Camille held out her ID badge, gold-etched with the state seal that allowed banking security clearance. "Where is the minor you just transported from Riverview Bank?" The officer faltered, reading the card. "Booking, ma'am. But you'll need to wait. Walk. Me." "There." Her tone held no volume, but all gravity. He obeyed, leading her past flickering fluorescents to a desk where Officer Peters was removing Amari's cuffs. The boy's shoulders tensed, then sagged with raw relief as he spotted her. Mom Camille crossed the room in 3 measured strides, palms settling on his cheeks. "You're unhurt." He nodded, eyes shining among harsh lights. Peters cleared his throat. "Dr. Hart, we were just ensuring you ensured the humiliation of an innocent child." She cut in, voice velvet over steel. "Please note, my counsel will request body cam footage within the hour. Sergeant, release my son into my custody now." The desk sergeant, A veteran with salt and pepper mustache assessed the tableau billionaire executive, trembling teenager, two suddenly uneasy patrolmen. He unlocked a drawer, retrieved a release form, and slid it forward. "Sign here, ma'am." While Camille scrawled her name, her phone vibrated. Isaac's message: emergency writ filed. Judge on standby. Caldwell, en route to bank. Perfect. She handed the pen back, wrapped an arm around Amari, and walked him outside where Quentin held the rear door. "Home with security," she instructed. "I'll join after one stop." Amari gripped her wrist. "You're going to the bank." It wasn't a question. Yes. Justice works in daylight, but accountability sometimes needs fluorescent lobby lighting. She kissed his forehead, then settled him into the car. As the Bentley pulled away, another Hearthstone SUV slid in behind as escort. Camille exhaled once, long silent, before turning to Victor, now arriving in a second vehicle. "Lobby cam status, streaming to your tablet. Manager's still on site. Then, so am I." They reached Riverview, Maine in 10 minutes. Blue dusk pooled against glass facades. Inside, customers trickled out, chatter, hushed by earlier spectacle. Camille entered, flanked by Victor, and an associate who carried a slim briefcase like a verdict. Stiletto heels echoed each strike, erasing distance between her and the Marble Island, where Linda Price reorganized deposit slips, entirely unaware the storm had walked through her door. Megan Walker saw first. Color drained from her face. Linda followed the line of sight, lips parting as Camille advanced. For a heartbeat, the lobby froze. Tellers, clients, even the security guard seemed carved from the same stone as the floor. Camille laid a burnished business card on the counter edges, catching the halogen glow. "Ms. Price," she began, voice calm as a sealed vault, but carrying to every corner step out from behind my company's counter. "We need to discuss the cost of your precautions." Linda's fingers twitched toward the card, but stopped halfway, as if even touching it might change her future for the worse. Camille kept speaking, voice low, yet perfectly audible. "Cost, Ms. Price, is measured in more than dollars. Tonight it's measured in career's credibility, and the time it will take my son to forget the shape of your contempt." Chairman Henry Caldwell burst through the side door, tie askew, breath short. "Dr. Hart, Camille. My deepest apologies." He spun to Linda. "Step away from the counter." She obeyed, cheeks blotched red. Caldwell signaled the head of security, who wheeled out a monitor already cued to lobby footage. Pixel-perfect images rolled Amari's polite approach. Linda's immediate scowl, the confiscated phone, the cuffs. The room watched in collective hush. The silent video spoke louder than any accusation. Megan swallowed audibly. Linda's eyes flicked from screen to crowd, landing nowhere safe. When the clip ended, Camille tapped the briefcase. Victor opened it, producing a slim folder. "This," Camille said, "is a civil complaint, citing racial discrimination, false imprisonment, and emotional distress. It names Riverview Bank, Linda Price, Officers Peters and Ruiz, and any supervisory staff who ratified their conduct." Caldwell didn't even glance at the pages before nodding. "Understood. Ms. Price, turn in your badge and keys." The manager froze. "Sir, I followed protocol." "Protocol doesn't include slurs or inventing criminal behavior," Camille cut in. "Nor does it allow refusing identification you never bothered to read." Security escorted Linda toward the employee door. As she passed Camille, she tried one last stab of dignity. "I was protecting the bank. You were protecting a prejudice." Camille replied softly. "The bank will survive. Your career won't." The doors clicked shut behind Linda. A murmur rippled across tellers and customers who'd lingered just to witness outcome. Camille faced them. Everyone here saw a child treated as a threat because of skin color and an envelope of birthday bills. "Tomorrow morning, my holding company begins mandatory bias retraining for every branch we own. Starting tonight, any refusal of service to a minor requires documented cause and a second-level approval. No exceptions." Caldwell added, "A public statement will be issued before sunrise. Anyone with information about similar incidents May contact our new ethics hotline. He sounded chastened, but also relieved action was at least a route back toward credibility. Camille's phone vibrated. A message from Isaac Commissioner Torres has placed both arresting officers on administrative leave. Internal Affairs review initiated. She allowed herself a single, satisfied breath, then slid the phone away. A young teller, cheeks moist, stepped forward. "Dr. Hart, for what it's worth, I wanted to intervene, but fear held you still." Camille finished, not unkindly. "Remember that paralysis. Use it as fuel to move next time." The teller nodded, chastened, yet grateful. Camille turned to leave, heels echoing across marble, now hushed by reckoning. At the doors, she paused, looking back at the stunned faces. "My son will come here again," she said. "When he does, I expect he'll meet professionals, not prosecutors." Outside, night air felt less stifling. Victor folded into stride beside her. "SUV is ready. Amari's home with grandmother. Vital signs normal, appetite restored." "Good." Camille allowed the smallest smile. "Tomorrow we begin the hard part, turning one boy's nightmare into everyone's safeguard." Headlights slid over pavement as they pulled away. Behind them, Riverview's neon sign flickered as if the building itself were waking to consequences that would reshape every ledger it kept from dollars and cents to dignity owed and finally paid. Dawn had barely peeled a silver line over the city skyline when Camille sat across from Henry Caldwell again, this time in the wood-paneled boardroom on Riverview's top floor. The sleepless night showed only in the pallor of his cheeks. Camille looked as crisp as she had 12 hours earlier, except for the travel coffee she nursed instead of her usual porcelain cup. "Draft statement is on page 1, Caldwell said, sliding a folder across polished mahogany. "Full admission, zero hedging, and our new youth integrity protocol spelled out in plain language." Camille skimmed mandatory bias audits, 2-manager sign-off, before any juvenile referral, quarterly public reports. "Good start," she said. "Add a community restitution fund, $2 million, to launch earmarked for financial literacy programs in the 5 zip codes with the highest rejection rates." Caldwell wrote it down without argument. She closed the folder. "I have an initiative of my own. It goes beyond Riverview." At that exact hour, Amari sat at the kitchen counter, metal bowl of cereal turning soggy, while morning news replayed cell phone footage, his wrists in cuffs. Then, the silent moment Camille faced Linda Price. Grandmother Eloise clicked the TV off. "Your mother overturned a mountain last night," she said, brushing crumbs from the boy's hair. "Question is, what do you do with the space she cleared?" Amari didn't answer immediately. Images of classmates flashed in his mind. Kids who carried $20 bills like contraband, because adults doubted their honesty. "I'm not letting the story end as a headline," he murmured. He pushed aside the cereal, opened his school Chromebook, and began drafting a document titled Equal Ledger. 3 hours later, Heartstone Capital's 20-seat strategy suite filled with executives who normally guided billion-dollar deals. Now they listened to a 13-year-old in a hoodie. Amari stood beside a projected slide deck, minimal text, bold numbers. 43% of students in my district keep cash hidden because they don't trust banks, he began. 20% have been questioned by tellers when making deposits under $50. And none of them have lawyers for parents. He outlined Equal Ledger youth-only financial workshops, hosted in bank lobbies after hours, a pro bono hotline staffed by law school volunteers, micro-grants to cover minimum balance fees for teens who earned deposit certificates through the program. The room stayed silent until he finished with a single sentence. "Knowledge is capital too, and the interest compounds faster." Camille broke the silence first. "The foundation will seed $5 million. Caldwell raised a cautious hand. "Riverview will supply venues, and staff provided our regulators nod. Regulators," Camille said, "will applaud any bank that underwrites its own criticism. Begin the pilot next quarter." A ripple of assent traveled the table. Amari exhaled, shoulders dropping, as if a weight had been unhooked. News of Linda Price's termination spread faster than the bank's official statement. Financial blogs dissected body cam footage. Morning shows hosted civil rights attorneys who hailed the swift response, yet demanded systemic fixes. When Riverview announced the Youth Integrity Protocol and the Equal Ledger Partnership, skeptics tagged it, "Yuck PR spin." But the online cynicism faded after Camille unfurled Phase 2, an open-source bias tracking dashboard, where any customer could log service complaints visible to regulators and press in real time. Officer Peters and Ruiz now faced internal affairs interrogations. Meanwhile, the police commissioner, under pressure from City Hall, ordered a department-wide review of juvenile stop procedures. Camille watched the press conference from her office, expression unreadable. Only Victor, standing guard at the door, saw her unclench her fists. "Systemic change is slow," he said quietly. "Then, we accelerate the gears," she replied. That weekend, the first Equal Ledger workshop took place in Riverview's Midtown branch. Counters were pushed aside for folding tables stacked with mock checks and budgeting worksheets. The security guard who'd watched Amari get cuffed now stood at the door, greeting teens with bottled water and laminated name tags. Amari opened the session. He told his story in 2 minutes. No adjectives, no theatrics. Then handed the floor to a student from the rival middle school who described overdraft fees swallowing her babysitting earnings. The room buzzed as kids compared experiences, scribbling goals on sticky notes. Save for college app fees. Buy little brother a laptop. Start a sneaker cleaning hustle. An economics professor guided them through compounding interest math. A pro bono lawyer explained minors' banking rights. In a corner, Camille observed, unseen by most. Caldwell joined her midway, whispering, "Attendance exceeded fire code. We'll need bigger rooms." Camille nodded, eyes on her son, as he knelt to help a 6th grader calculate interest on 36 months of allowance. "This is the hard part I mentioned," she said. "Workshops, audits, dashboards, their infrastructure." But conviction in a 13-year-old's voice, that's the engine. Outside, dusk gathered again. Yet where the previous night's darkness had carried sirens and humiliation, this one hummed with the low, bright chatter of youths, swapping dreams, clutching blank checkbooks like passports to new territory. And Camille, watching Amari laugh with kids who yesterday would have crossed the street to avoid the bank's glare, understood safeguards were forming not from policies alone, but from the shared muscle memory of what injustice felt like and the shared resolve to never feel it again. Barely 8 weeks after that dusk-lit workshop, where Amari had shown younger students how interest could turn coins into tuition, he and Camille walked back through Riverview's glass doors together. The bank smelled the same, but felt transformed. Posters for Equal Ledger hung beside rate charts, and the security guard who once watched in silence now greeted them with a fist-over-heart salute he'd borrowed from the kids. Amari flashed a grin that reached his eyes. Camille noticed the way other customers glanced at him with curiosity, not suspicion, and realized the atmosphere carried a new default setting. Welcome, until proven otherwise. A freshly minted youth specialist named Jordan Lee stepped from behind the counter, tablet in hand. He was barely out of college, but his tailored badge and quick smile radiated practiced respect. "Mr. Jackson," he said, addressing Amari directly, "I've reviewed your documents online. Thank you for uploading them in advance. All that's left is a signature and a card choice, classic blue or custom art from our student designers." Amari chose the art, a swirl of bright lines drawn by a 7th grader at the pilot workshop. Jordan processed the account in under 5 minutes, explaining each screen, but never once repeating a question or raising an eyebrow at the cash deposit that now arrived electronically from grandmother Eloise's transfer. Camille watched the exchange from a seating nook redesigned for youth clients. Shorter stools, charging ports, a mural of kids building paper airplanes that morphed into rockets. Her attention drifted only when Caldwell appeared, holding 2 cups of proper porcelain coffee this time. He gestured toward the mural. 64% increase in new teen accounts since we launched Equal Ledger, he said quietly. And we're seeing upticks among demographics that never banked with us before. Metrics are comforting, Camille replied, but her eyes remained on Amari, now shaking Jordan's hand. Yet, They're the byproduct, not the purpose. Understood, Caldwell said, then added, the bias tracking dashboard goes live citywide next week. Regulators are calling it a model. Camille accepted the coffee. Hold us to it when the headlines fade. Outside, Amari slid his new debit card into his pocket like a badge of rank. That was how it was supposed to happen the first time, he said. The phrase held no bitterness, only a quiet triumph. Supposed to, yes, Camille answered, walking beside him toward the bright noon pavement. But without what happened, how many silent policies would still be breathing behind those walls? Amari considered, then shrugged with the wisdom of someone forced to grow a year older in a single night. Guess we paid tuition that day, just not to a bank. They reached the curb where Quentin waited with the Bentley, though now a playful bumper sticker on the back window read, "Equal ledger on board." As Amari climbed in, his phone buzzed a group chat from workshop attendees, sharing screenshots of their first deposits peppered with emojis and exclamation points. He replied with a selfie of the debit card and one word, win. Quentin merged into traffic. Billboards zipped past, one advertising Riverview's new youth integrity program, another promoting a citywide amnesty event for unbanked residents. Camille's gaze lingered on a third, a community college banner that read, "Finance belongs to everyone." She thought of Linda Price, now working retail in a strip mall across town, reportedly still invoking policy to anyone who would listen, unaware that policy itself had evolved without her consent. As skyscrapers receded, Camille opened her tablet to the Equal Ledger dashboard. Colored dots marked live workshops scheduled in 3 neighboring states. One blinked green as the first session commenced in a branch she had never set foot inside. She let herself imagine hundreds of kids walking through glass doors, unafraid, armed with language that turned confusion into leverage. Amari caught the screen's glow and leaned over the seat. "That one's Samantha's branch," he said, naming the 6th grader, whose allowance budget he'd balanced. "She texted me, says the bank smells like new carpet and possibilities." Camille laughed, a soft sound, swallowed by the engine's hum. Possibilities have a scent. Who knew the city fell behind, replaced by tree-lined avenues leading home? In the rearview mirror, Camille saw Amari tapping ideas into his phone, workshop tweaks, maybe, or a new fundraising plan to offset overdraft fees statewide. Whatever it was, she did not interrupt. Some inheritances were best discovered through use, not gifting. Wind stirred the oaks along the boulevard, sending flurries of gold leaves across the windshield, like confetti at an unseen parade. Camille thought of ledgers kept, and ledgers owed, of credits no bank could issue, and debits no apology could erase. She breathed in, let the rhythm of the road settle, and felt certain the balance sheet of justice, tilted for so long, had inched that day toward equilibrium. One account, one child, one stubborn mother at a time.